The billionaire's sons wanted to shame his ex-wife by inviting her to his big wedding. He thought she would come looking sad and broken. But when she arrived in her own Tesla Cybertruck, with her triplets holding their hands, everyone froze. The same woman he once called barren now had triplets. And that was just the beginning. Once upon a time, the morning sun slipped through the half-drawn curtains of Lena's modest but cozy living room. She was sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone, when the knock came, a gentle tap-tap-tap, the kind that carried strange news. She opened the door to find a delivery man holding a golden envelope, sealed with a familiar family crest. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it. The name printed on the front made her heart pause. Mr. and Mrs. Adrian Williams request your presence. Her breath caught. Adrian Williams, her ex-husband, the man who had once promised her forever, then shattered her world because she couldn't give him a child. She tore the envelope open, and her eyes darted over the fancy script. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Adrian Williams and Tiffany Blake. A small laugh escaped her lips, not one of joy, but disbelief. He's getting married again. She whispered. 10 years of marriage meant nothing to him. 10 years of tears, prayers, and humiliation. Her heart squeezed painfully. He even sent me an invitation. She murmured. How thoughtful. She placed the card on the table, sat back, and looked around her living room. The walls filled with photos of her and her 3 boys. Her miracles. A faint smile replaced her sadness. She called out, Boys, breakfast is ready. 3 tiny voices answered from upstairs. Laughter echoing down the hall. In a few moments, they came running. Identical triplets, 7 years old, with the same dimpled smiles and brown eyes that reminded her of Adrian. Every day, looking at them brought both joy and pain. Mommy, what's that golden card? One of them asked, peering curiously at the table. Lena smiled faintly. It's an invitation, she said softly, to an old memory. While the boys ate, Lena sat quietly, thinking of the past, the years she had loved Adrian with all her heart, only for him to throw her away like trash because the doctors said she couldn't conceive. She remembered how he shouted at her, called her cursed, and divorced her without mercy. She remembered packing her bags in tears, walking into the rain with nothing but her clothes and broken dreams. But life, in its strange way, had smiled at her again. After the divorce, she found herself pregnant, not with 1, but with 3. And through sleepless nights and hard work, she built a new life. She opened a small online business that had now grown into a successful brand. She didn't live like a billionaire, but she lived peacefully, and that peace was worth more than gold. She stood up and picked up the invitation again, staring at Adrian's name. A slow, mischievous smile crept across her face. So, you want to show off your new bride and humiliate me in front of your rich friends? She whispered. Fine. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. Then she laughed. Not a bitter laugh this time, but a calm one. You see, life has a way of surprising those who think they've won. Before she could continue her thoughts, she turned toward the camera with a cheerful smile. Dear viewers, she said warmly, if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to my YouTube channel, Voices of Annie Joy, for more dramatic, emotional, and funny stories that'll make you laugh and cry at the same time. She winked playfully, then returned to the story. That evening, Lena sat in her garage, staring at her newest pride, a sleek Tesla Cybertruck she had recently bought. Its silver body gleamed under the lights like something from the future. Her triplets were inside, pressing buttons and giggling. Mommy, are we going somewhere? One asked. Lena smiled mysteriously. Yes, sweetheart, she said. We've just been invited to a wedding. The boys gasped. Whose wedding? Someone who once thought your mommy wasn't enough, she said softly. The next few days were a whirlwind. She picked out an elegant gown, royal blue silk that flowed like water. She got her hair done, her nails polished, and her boys fitted into matching tuxedos. When they stood in front of the mirror, they looked like a royal family. As she gazed at their reflection, her heart swelled with pride. Let them see what they lost, she whispered. Outside, the Cybertruck waited. And as Lena closed the door behind her, she didn't just step out as Adrian's ex-wife. She stepped out as the woman who was about to reclaim her dignity with grace, style, and a touch of sweet revenge. The night after receiving the wedding invitation, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories of her old life flooding back like waves in a storm. Adrian's laughter, his promises, his betrayal, everything replayed in her mind as if it had happened yesterday. She remembered the night he left her, how he stood by the window, his voice cold, saying, "Lena, I can't live like this anymore. 10 years and no child. My father says I need a woman who can continue the family name." She had begged him, cried, even fell to her knees, holding his hand. But his eyes were already elsewhere, toward the glitter of money and pride. He slammed the door and walked out of her life, leaving her with an empty house and an emptier heart. Those days were her darkest. She lost weight, lost her smile, and nearly lost her will to live. She moved into a tiny apartment on the edge of town, where no one knew her name. Her friends disappeared too. Everyone loves a rich man's wife, but no one visits a divorced, barren woman. Yet, in that lonely silence, something unexpected began to happen. A month after the divorce, Lena fell ill. At first, she thought it was stress, but the dizziness and nausea refused to stop. When she finally visited the clinic, the nurse smiled and said, "Congratulations, ma'am, you're pregnant." Lena almost fainted. "That can't be," she whispered. "They said I couldn't have children." The nurse laughed softly. "Well, maybe they were wrong, or maybe God had his own plan." Lena left the hospital with trembling hands, tears of joy and fear mixing on her cheeks. But her joy doubled when she returned months later for a scan, and the doctor smiled wide, saying, "You're carrying triplets." She couldn't believe it. "Triplets," she gasped, laughing and crying at the same time. "You mean 3 babies?" The doctor nodded. "Yes, ma'am. You're going to be a very busy mother." That was the day Lena decided she would never let pain define her again. She named her unborn babies in her heart that very day. Liam, Leo, and Logan, her 3 little soldiers of destiny. The pregnancy wasn't easy. She was alone, broke, and exhausted. But every kick from her babies reminded her that she wasn't truly alone. She began selling handmade jewelry online, then started customizing designs for clients. Her creativity blossomed, and slowly, people began to notice her work. Within a year, her business took off. She worked day and night, often with a baby on her back and another crying in a crib. There were moments she wanted to give up, but then she'd look at their tiny faces and whisper, "Mommy's going to make sure you never suffer like I did." By the time the triplets turned 5, Lena had built a thriving online brand. She expanded to a small boutique, and her products were being shipped across states. The same society that once mocked her now admired her strength. She became known as the Iron Lady with a golden heart. Every evening, she'd sit with her boys on the balcony, telling them bedtime stories, not about princes and castles, but about courage and faith. The boys often asked about their father, and she'd just smile gently. "He's part of the story God is still writing," she'd say. But deep down, she sometimes wondered what Adrian would think if he saw them. 3 handsome, smart boys who looked just like him. Would he regret leaving? Would he cry? Or would he still cling to his pride? One evening, as she watched the sunset with a cup of tea, her phone buzzed again, messages and gossip links about Adrian's upcoming wedding. The internet was buzzing about his new bride, Tiffany Blake, a glamorous model known for showing off diamonds larger than her morals. Lena chuckled softly. "Perfect match," she said under her breath. "He wanted fame, and now he's marrying a spotlight." Her triplets ran up to her, showing a video of a Tesla Cybertruck on YouTube. "Mommy, look, this truck is so cool. It's like a spaceship," they shouted. Lena smiled knowingly. "You like it?" she asked. "Yes," they cheered in unison. She leaned closer, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Then maybe Mommy should get one." The boys screamed with excitement, jumping around her like little fireworks. That was the moment Lena decided. She wasn't going to that wedding as the broken ex-wife. She was going as the woman who rose from ashes, the mother of 3 miracles, and the symbol of quiet revenge dressed in grace. As the night settled in, Lena whispered a prayer under her breath. "Thank you, Lord, for turning my tears into testimony." Then she tucked her triplets into bed, kissed their foreheads, and smiled to herself. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we begin preparation for the grand show." At the luxurious Williams mansion, the air smelled of fresh roses, expensive champagne, and pride. Adrian Williams, the billionaire's only son, was pacing the marble floor of the grand living room as wedding planners rushed around like bees in a golden hive. "Make sure the chandelier in the ballroom sparkles brighter than last time," he said sharply, fixing his cufflinks. "And double the fireworks for the after-party. I want the whole city to know Adrian Williams is getting married again." His best friend, Marcus, laughed and clapped him on the back. "Man, you really want to make a statement, huh? You've already made headlines with this wedding." Adrian smirked. "Good. Let them talk. Especially my ex-wife." He picked up a glass of wine, swirled it, and took a slow sip. "I even sent her an invitation," he added with a wicked grin. Marcus raised a brow. "Wait, you actually invited Lena? After all these years?" Adrian chuckled. "Of course. I want her to see what she missed. She thought I couldn't do better without her. Now she'll watch me marry Tiffany Blake, the most beautiful model in the city. Let her come in her cheap dress and see what real success looks like." The 2 men burst out laughing, unaware that life was preparing a surprise neither of them could imagine. Meanwhile, in the corner of the grand hall, Tiffany Blake, the soon-to-be Mrs. Williams, posed for the photographers. She looked stunning, but her beauty carried the sharpness of glass, shiny but fragile. "Adrian, darling," she called out in her silky voice, "I was thinking of hiring a helicopter entrance for me on the wedding day. What do you think?" Adrian smiled proudly. "Anything you want, babe. Money isn't a problem." Tiffany grinned, flipping her long blonde hair. "Good. I don't want your ex-wife showing up in some cheap taxi and stealing my spotlight." Adrian laughed again. "Please, Tiffany. She can't afford to breathe in the same air as you. That woman's probably still living in a rented apartment, cooking noodles for dinner." Marcus joined in. "Yeah, bro, you did the right thing. A woman who can't give you children doesn't deserve your name." Adrian nodded with arrogance, but deep inside, a small voice in his heart whispered, "What if she was the only one who truly loved you?" He quickly brushed it off. "No," he muttered under his breath. She was a mistake. The next few days were a parade of luxury. Gold-plated invitations, diamond decorations, imported flowers, and a wedding cake so tall it needed a ladder to decorate. Reporters camped outside the mansion, eager to capture every detail of the billionaire wedding. The internet buzzed with headlines: "Billionaire heir marries model Tiffany Blake. Wedding of the century." Adrian enjoyed the attention. He gave interviews, flashed his expensive smile, and pretended to be deeply in love. But behind closed doors, Tiffany complained endlessly. "Adrian, this ring isn't shiny enough." Or, "Adrian, I don't like the flower arrangements." He always nodded, pretending to care. One night, while reviewing the guest list, his eyes landed on a familiar name, Lena Williams. His smirk returned. "I can't wait to see your face," he said aloud. "She'll regret ever leaving me." Marcus chuckled. "Just don't let your new wife notice how much you're looking forward to that." Adrian laughed, unaware that the woman he once called barren was now raising 3 little versions of him, and that she was about to walk into his wedding in a way that would turn his perfect world upside down. On the other side of town, Lena was preparing quietly. She stood before the mirror, her gown spread out across the bed like liquid sapphire. Her triplets were trying on their miniature tuxedos, posing dramatically in front of her. "Mommy, do we look handsome enough?" Leo asked proudly. Lena smiled. "You 3 are the most handsome boys in the world." Liam adjusted his bow tie. "Mommy, are we really going to Daddy's wedding?" Lena hesitated, then knelt down. Yes, sweetheart. But remember, we're not going there to fight or cry. We're going to smile and show them that happiness doesn't depend on money or pride. The boys nodded seriously, though their little eyes sparkled with excitement. That night, as she tucked them into bed, Lena whispered softly, "Tomorrow, you'll meet the man who once thought mommy wasn't enough. But I want you to remember this. You three are the proof that love always wins." She looked out the window, watching the moonlight touch the Tesla Cybertruck parked outside. Its metallic body shimmered like destiny itself, waiting to make an entrance. Tomorrow, Adrian's arrogant laughter would meet its match, and the world would witness what true grace looked like. The morning sun glimmered over the grand wedding venue, a massive garden filled with golden chairs, crystal chandeliers hanging from floral arches, and guests dressed like royalty. Cameras flashed, drones buzzed, and reporters crowded the gate, eager to capture every luxurious moment. Tiffany Blake, the bride, stood in front of a mirror inside her dressing suite, admiring herself. "This is my day," she said proudly. "No one, absolutely no one, will steal my spotlight." Outside, Adrian Williams looked sharp in his designer tuxedo, shaking hands with powerful businessmen and celebrities. He was the picture of pride. "Gentlemen," he said with a confident smile, "you are about to witness the most elegant wedding of the decade." His father, Mr. Williams Sr., nodded approvingly. "Don't mess this up, Adrian. This marriage means more than love, it's business." Adrian smirked. "I've got it under control, Dad." Then, at exactly 11 a.m., as the orchestra played softly and guests began to whisper, a deep humming sound rolled through the air. Hum. People turned their heads toward the entrance. "What's that sound?" someone murmured. "Is that a truck?" another asked. And then there it was, a sleek, silver Tesla Cybertruck gliding through the driveway like something out of a movie. Its chrome body gleamed under the sun, its tinted windows hiding the mystery inside. The crowd gasped. Even the security guards froze. The truck stopped right in front of the red carpet. The door opened slowly, and out stepped Lena. Every camera turned. Every whisper stopped. She was breathtaking. Her royal blue gown shimmered like ocean waves, hugging her figure with elegance. Her hair flowed down in soft curls, and her diamond earrings sparkled as she smiled politely. She carried herself like a queen who didn't need a crown. But she wasn't alone. 3 little boys stepped out after her, identical triplets in matching tuxedos, shiny shoes, and little sunglasses that made them look like mini bodyguards. They held her hands proudly as they walked side by side. The crowd gasped again. "Are those her kids?" One guest whispered. "Wait, didn't Adrian say she was barren?" Another asked. Phones came out, cameras clicked, and the murmurs turned into waves of gossip. Adrian, standing near the altar, nearly dropped his champagne. His mouth fell open as his eyes widened in disbelief. What the?" he stuttered under his breath. Marcus nudged him. "Bro, that's Lena." The guests couldn't stop staring. Some clapped quietly, admiring her grace. Others whispered in shock. Tiffany, watching from inside the bridal suite through the window, turned pale. "Who invited her?" she hissed at her assistant. "Who let her come here like that?" Lena walked slowly down the red carpet, smiling gently at the guests. The triplets waved their tiny hands, charming everyone instantly. "Hi," one of them shouted. "We're Mommy's best boys." Laughter rippled through the crowd. When she reached the front, she greeted Adrian's father with a polite nod. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. The old man blinked in confusion, unsure what to say. "Lena, you look different." "Life changes people," she replied calmly, her smile never fading. Adrian finally stepped forward, still frozen. "Lena," he muttered, trying to sound composed, you came." She tilted her head slightly. "You sent an invitation, didn't you? I thought it'd be rude not to attend." The crowd giggled quietly. Her poise was unshakable, her tone soft but powerful. Adrian's pride began to crack. He looked at the boys and whispered, "Whose children are these?" Lena smiled. Mine. He frowned. Yours. Yes, she said sweetly. Mine. And a little surprise I'll let you think about. Cameras caught every second. The internet was about to explode with the most dramatic wedding entrance of the year. The ceremony tried to continue, but the air had shifted. Everyone kept stealing glances at Lena and the triplets. Even the pastor seemed distracted. Tiffany finally appeared, her smile forced, her eyes shooting daggers at Lena. Well, she said sarcastically, so nice of you to join us. Lena nodded gracefully. Wouldn't miss it for the world. As the ceremony went on, the boys fidgeted in their seats. One of them whispered, Mommy, is that man our daddy? Lena gently placed a finger on his lips. Should not now, sweetheart. But it was too late. A few guests overheard, and the whisper spread faster than perfume in the air. They called him Daddy, someone gasped. Adrian's hand began to tremble. Tiffany's fake smile vanished completely. By the time the ceremony ended, Lena had stolen every ounce of attention without saying a single unkind word. Reporters rushed outside to catch her for interviews. But she only smiled and said, It's a beautiful day for love and new beginnings. Then she got back into her Tesla Cybertruck with her 3 boys, waving to the crowd like a star leaving the red carpet. Inside the venue, Adrian stood frozen, his mind spinning. He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of his biggest humiliation, wrapped neatly in blue silk and a mother's quiet revenge. The reception hall sparkled with chandeliers, laughter, and the soft rhythm of jazz music. Every table overflowed with champagne glasses and golden plates. But one table drew every eye, the one where Lena sat with her triplets. Her boys were already mini celebrities, charming guests with their polite manners and adorable smiles. One of them had somehow convinced a waiter to give him extra ice cream. Another was explaining to a curious guest how their Cybertruck runs faster than Daddy's old car. The whole room laughed. Adrian, however, wasn't laughing. He sat at the high table, stiff as a statue, forcing a smile as his new bride, Tiffany, posed endlessly for photos. His mind was spinning. Those boys, they look exactly like me, he thought, every time one of them grinned. It was like seeing his reflection from childhood. His heart raced, and his stomach twisted with unease. Tiffany leaned toward him, whispering sharply, Why is everyone staring at her? This is our wedding, Adrian. Do something. He sighed impatiently. Relax, Tiffany. She'll leave soon. But deep down, he knew Lena wasn't the type to make a quiet exit. Not today. As the MC took the microphone, he announced, Ladies and gentlemen, before we toast to the happy couple, let's hear a few words from someone very special, Mrs. Lena Williams, the former wife of the groom. The hall gasped. Tiffany nearly choked on her drink. Adrian's face turned white. What? He muttered, glaring at the MC. Who asked her to speak? The MC smiled innocently. It was a request from several guests. Everyone wanted to hear from her. Lena stood up slowly, her blue gown shimmering under the lights. Her boys clapped excitedly. Go, Mommy, one shouted. A ripple of laughter filled the room. She walked gracefully to the microphone, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. She smiled warmly at the audience, not fake, not bitter, just calm and confident. Good evening, everyone, she began. Her voice was steady, smooth like velvet. First, I want to say congratulations to the newlyweds. Marriage is a beautiful thing when built on love, patience, and honesty. Tiffany forced a grin. Adrian's throat tightened. Lena continued. 10 years ago, I stood where you stand now, believing I had everything, love, wealth, a home. But life has a funny way of teaching lessons. Sometimes, what you lose is exactly what helps you find yourself again. The guests nodded quietly, drawn to her voice. She paused, smiling gently at Adrian. When my husband left me, I thought my story was over. I thought I was broken beyond repair. But God, he had other plans. The pain that was meant to destroy me became a seed that grew my greatest blessings. A soft murmur filled the room. People leaned forward, captivated. Adrian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Tiffany rolled her eyes. Lena turned toward her 3 boys, who were beaming proudly. "These," she said, gesturing to them, "are my miracles. Proof that life doesn't always give up on you, even when people do." Gasps echoed across the hall. Adrian's jaw dropped. His father's glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Tiffany froze, her smile completely gone. Lena continued calmly. "I was told I could never be a mother. I was told I was incomplete. But standing here today, I want every woman to know no one can define your worth. Not a man, not society, not even a doctor's report." The hall was silent. You could hear the soft music fading in the background. Even the waiters had stopped moving. She smiled, looking straight at Adrian. "Some people throw you away because they don't see your value. But sometimes God allows it so they'll one day watch you shine from afar." A wave of quiet laughter and applause spread through the crowd. The guests nodded in admiration. Some whispered, "She's amazing." Others murmured, "That's real class." Tiffany's eyes flashed with jealousy. She leaned close to Adrian and hissed, "You better fix this, or your little charity case just stole your wedding." But Lena wasn't done. To the beautiful couple, she said finally, raising her glass, "I wish you love that's honest, patience that's deep, and eyes that truly see each other's worth. May you never forget that what glitters isn't always gold." The audience erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Guests stood up, clapping. Adrian sat frozen, his heart pounding, realizing that his ex-wife had just delivered the most graceful speech in history, and somehow turned his wedding into her victory, without a single insult. Lena smiled one last time, handed the microphone back, and returned to her seat beside her triplets. They jumped up to hug her, whispering, "Mommy, everyone loves you." She laughed softly. "No, my darlings," she said, kissing their heads. "They just love the truth." As she looked across the room, she caught Adrian's eyes, full of confusion, guilt, and something he hadn't felt in years, regret. She turned away calmly and focused on her children. The show was only beginning, but she had already won the first round. The reception continued, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Guests who once circled around the bride and groom were now gravitating toward Lena's table. Her grace, her story, and those 3 bright-eyed boys had stolen the entire show. Cameras turned from Tiffany's diamond crown to the triplets' innocent smiles. Social media was already buzzing with captions like "the ex-wife who outshined the bride" and "the billionaire's secret triplets." At the main table, Adrian clenched his jaw. He could barely focus as reporters whispered among themselves, glancing at him and his ex-wife. Tiffany, fuming, was pretending to smile for pictures while her hand under the table dug her nails into Adrian's arm. "Do something," she hissed through gritted teeth. "People are ignoring me because of her." Adrian forced a laugh and said loudly, "Everyone, thank you for being here. Let's enjoy the party." He clinked his glass, but only a few guests politely responded. Most were too busy watching Lena's boys dancing near the stage. Little Leo grabbed a microphone from one of the performers and shouted cheerfully, "Can we sing for Mommy?" The crowd went wild with laughter and cheers. Even the band nodded in excitement. "Of course, young man," the lead singer said. The 3 boys climbed onto the stage, holding hands. "We wrote a little song for our mommy," Liam announced proudly. "It's called The Strongest Lady Ever." The music started a soft, cheerful beat, and the triplets began to sing in their sweet, off-key voices. Musical note, she cries, she tries, she never says goodbye. She laughs, she fights, she reaches for the sky. Our mommy's strong, our mommy's sweet. She's the best thing you'll ever meet. Musical note. The crowd melted. Everyone clapped and cheered. Even the waiters were smiling. Tears filled Lena's eyes as she covered her mouth. Overwhelmed, the boys finished with a bow, shouting, "We love you, Mommy." The entire hall erupted in applause. Adrian felt something sharp twist in his chest, pride mixed with regret. "They're my boys," he thought. "I can see it. My eyes, my smile, my laugh." But he couldn't move, couldn't speak. The truth was dawning on him like a sunrise he wasn't ready to face. Tiffany, however, was losing her patience. She slammed her champagne glass onto the table. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Oh, even let those kids come up there?" Everyone turned, startled by her tone. Adrian tried to calm her, whispering, "Tiff, lower your voice," but she pulled her hand away and stood up. "No, Adrian. This is supposed to be our day, not a circus for your ex-wife and her brats." The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. Even the band stopped playing. Lena stood quietly, holding her boys close as the room fell into awkward silence. With calm dignity, she smiled and said, "I'm so sorry if my children interrupted. They only wanted to celebrate love, something pure. I believe." Her voice was soft, but it carried across the entire hall like music. Tiffany's anger deflated immediately. The guests began whispering again, this time not kindly about the bride. One guest muttered, "Poor woman. So insecure." Another said, "Lena's got more class in one sentence than Tiffany does in a diamond dress." Adrian's father sighed, shaking his head. "I warned you, son. You let go of gold for glitter." Trying to save face, Adrian stood and clapped. "Beautiful performance, boys," he said with a forced smile. "Who's your father? He must be very proud of you." The triplets looked at each other and then at Lena. Finally, Leo, the boldest one, pointed straight at Adrian. "You," he said loudly. "Mommy showed us your picture. Your daddy, right?" The entire hall froze. Every camera turned toward them. Tiffany's face drained of color. Adrian blinked rapidly, stunned. What did you just say?" he stammered. Liam tugged his suit proudly. "You're our daddy. Mommy said you went far away, but maybe you'd come back one day." A chorus of shocked whispers rippled through the room. "They're his kids. Oh my goodness. They look just like him. This is crazy." Lena's heart pounded. She hadn't wanted it to happen this way. But it was too late. The truth had slipped out of her children's innocent mouths. She knelt beside them, holding their little hands, and smiled softly. "Boys, it's okay," she whispered. "We'll talk about this later." The boys nodded, but the damage was done. Adrian stood frozen, staring at them. At their eyes, their smiles, their little dimples, all reflections of himself. The world around him blurred. Tiffany grabbed his arm, whispering furiously, "Tell me this isn't true, Adrian. Tell me they're not yours." But deep inside, he already knew. Reporters were already snapping photos, recording videos, and sending them online. In less than an hour, #BillionaireExWifeDrama was trending across every platform. Lena took a deep breath, straightened up, and said calmly, "Excuse us." She took her boys' hands and began walking toward the exit. The crowd parted in silence, watching her go. Her head was high, her gown flowing like victory. As she stepped outside into the sunlight, her Cybertruck waited, shining like destiny itself. She opened the door, looked down at her triplets, and smiled. "Boys," she said softly, "never be ashamed of the truth. It always finds its way home." And as they drove off, the noise of the stunned wedding hall faded behind them. Inside, Adrian stood like a statue, his world cracking apart in front of hundreds of eyes. The wedding hall was silent long after Lena drove away in her Tesla Cybertruck. Guests sat frozen, some whispering, some pretending to sip from empty glasses, while others openly recorded the chaos unfolding. Tiffany stood trembling, her face red with anger and humiliation. Adrian just stood there, numb, staring at the big door Lena had just walked through. His mind raced. "Triplets, my sons." His father's voice broke the silence. "Adrian," he said, his tone heavy with disappointment, "you've made a fool of yourself and this family." Then, without another word, the old man turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Tiffany snapped back into motion. She turned to Adrian and shouted, "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. On our wedding day, you and your ex-wife's kids ruined everything." She grabbed her expensive veil and flung it to the ground. "This wedding is over." But Adrian didn't even look at her. He was still staring at the door, lost in thought. "My sons," he whispered, as if in disbelief. "I left her because she couldn't have children." And all this time, he pressed a hand to his chest, feeling a pain deeper than any wound. Guests began leaving quietly, murmuring among themselves. She was loyal after all, one woman said. He left her too soon. Another whispered, that bride should have stayed humble. The humiliation was complete. By the time Adrian looked up, the hall was nearly empty. Tiffany was gone too, crying to her bridesmaids. He walked out alone, past a parking lot full of luxury cars. But all he could see was Lena's Cybertruck speeding away, the same woman he had once called Baron. His pride had cost him everything. The next morning, Adrian sat in his office, staring blankly at his computer screen. His assistant walked in carefully. "Sir," she said softly, "the internet is full of stories about yesterday. It's trending everywhere." Adrian clicked the screen. Every news site had the same headline: "Billionaire dumps wife for not having kids, then discovers triplets at his wedding." His ex-wife's picture, glowing beside their 3 smiling sons, was everywhere. The comments under the post hit him like bullets. Serve him right. That woman is the definition of grace. Those kids look exactly like him. How blind can you be? He groaned and buried his face in his hands. What have I done? That night, he couldn't sleep. He remembered the early days of their marriage, Lena bringing him coffee every morning, cheering for his dreams, waiting for him when he came home late. Then the arguments started. The pressure from his mother. The doctor's reports that said no signs of fertility. But instead of standing by her, he let pride win. He blamed her. He left her. He got up from bed and paced the room. "She suffered alone," he muttered, "and she still raised those kids without me." Meanwhile, Lena was at home, sitting by the fireplace with her sons asleep on the couch. She looked at their peaceful faces and smiled. "You 3 did nothing wrong," she whispered. "You spoke the truth, and the truth never hurts the innocent." The next morning, a knock came on her door. When she opened it, she froze. Adrian stood there, wearing a plain shirt and looking nothing like the proud billionaire he once was. His eyes were swollen, his face pale. "Lena," he began softly. "Can we talk?" She folded her arms, standing tall. "After 10 years of silence, you suddenly have something to say?" He looked down ashamed. "I didn't know, Lena. I didn't know they were mine." She shook her head slowly. "You didn't even give me the chance to explain. You called me names, humiliated me, and walked away. You let your pride destroy us." He nodded. "You're right. I was stupid. I thought I was choosing happiness, but I chose emptiness instead." He took a deep breath. "I don't expect forgiveness, but please let me meet my sons properly." For a long moment, Lena said nothing. Then she stepped aside and gestured toward the living room where the triplets were watching cartoons. "They've been waiting for you all their lives," she said softly. "But don't hurt them like you hurt me." Adrian's eyes filled with tears as he walked inside. The boys looked up curiously. And little Leo asked, "Mommy, is this Daddy?" Lena nodded silently. Adrian knelt down, his voice breaking. "Yes, son, it's me. I'm your dad, and I'm so sorry I wasn't here." The 3 boys ran into his arms, giggling and hugging him. Adrian hugged them tightly, tears rolling down his cheeks. It was the most genuine smile he had in years. But outside, paparazzi cameras were already flashing through the windows, recording every second. The world was watching again, but this time, it wasn't a scandal. It was redemption in the making. Adrian sat on the couch, surrounded by the triplets, who couldn't stop touching his face and asking 1,000 questions. "Daddy, why didn't you come to my birthday?" asked Leo, pouting. "Did you forget about us?" added Liam, his little eyes glistening. Luke climbed onto his lap, whispering, "Mommy said you were busy changing the world." Adrian's heart twisted painfully. He swallowed hard and replied, "I didn't know you existed, my boys. I didn't know your mommy was carrying you. If I had known," his voice cracked, "I would have never left." Lena stood by the window, her arms folded, watching quietly. "You didn't know," she repeated softly, "but you never cared to ask, either." Her tone wasn't angry. It was sad, heavy with years of pain and disappointment. Adrian turned to her. "Lena, please, tell me how it happened. How did we have triplets when the doctors said you couldn't get pregnant?" She sat down opposite him, took a deep breath, and began. After you left, I was shattered. I stopped believing in myself. I was ready to give up until one night. I collapsed from exhaustion. When I woke up in the hospital, the doctor told me something that changed everything. My tests had been wrong. The fertility problem wasn't mine. It was yours. Adrian's eyes widened in disbelief. Mine. Yes, Lena said gently. You were under too much stress, drinking too much, working too much, and you refused to go for a second test. I did, but you never believed me. You were so angry that you just packed your things and left. Adrian leaned back, feeling the world spin. All these years, I blamed you. He murmured. I let my ego destroy everything. Lena continued. After you left, I moved out of the city. I didn't want pity. Then, 2 months later, the doctor called me for a follow-up. That's when I found out I was pregnant, with triplets. I almost fainted that day. She smiled faintly. I wanted to tell you, Adrian. I really did. But when I tried calling, your number had changed. And when I went to your office, your secretary told me you were traveling with your fiancé. Adrian buried his face in his hands. Oh God, he whispered. I was blind. The boys looked at him with innocent confusion. Daddy, why are you crying? Leo asked softly. He pulled him close. Because I made a big mistake. My sons. But I promise I'll never make it again. Lena sighed, her eyes softening a little. You can't just appear and fix 10 years of absence in one visit. Adrian, they've grown up without you. They've learned to live with my love alone. I know, he said quietly. But please, Lena, let me try. Let me be part of their lives now. Before she could answer, her phone started ringing. It was a video call from her lawyer. She excused herself and stepped outside to answer. Meanwhile, Adrian's phone buzzed too. It was Tiffany. He stared at the screen, conflicted. He finally answered. Tiff. Her voice was sharp and cold. Don't tiff me, Adrian. The internet has destroyed me. Everyone knows the truth about those kids. I'm being mocked online, and it's your fault. You embarrassed me in front of the world. Adrian sighed. Tiffany, this isn't about you anymore. It's about my children. Your what? She spat. Don't you dare call them yours. If you walk away from me, I'll take everything. Every deal, every property. Remember who made you relevant again. He closed his eyes. Then take it. I don't care anymore. I've already lost what really mattered. He hung up before she could scream another word. Lena came back in, overhearing the end of the call. Trouble in paradise? She asked dryly. Adrian managed a sad smile. I think paradise was never real. Just a glittering lie. She looked at him for a long moment. Then maybe this is your chance to find something real again. But don't do it because you feel guilty, Adrian. Do it because you've truly changed. He nodded slowly. Then give me the chance to prove it to you and to them. Lena hesitated, her heart softening despite herself. You can visit, she said finally. Once a week. They deserve to know their father. But I won't let you hurt them with broken promises. He smiled for the first time that day. Thank you, Lena. I won't let you down again. As he prepared to leave, the boys ran after him. Daddy, Daddy, come back tomorrow, they shouted. He turned at the door, grinning through tears. I'll be here, my champions. I promise. When he left, Lena stood by the window, watching him drive away. For the first time in 10 years, her heart felt light, but uncertain. Can people really change? She whispered to herself. Outside, the world still buzzed with gossip. But for once, Adrian didn't care about his image. He had something far more precious to fight for now, his family. Days turned into weeks, and the story of Adrian and his ex-wife continued to dominate every headline. Billionaire reunites with hidden triplets became the talk of the nation. Some called it romantic, others called it karma. But one person couldn't stand it, Tiffany. The woman Adrian had married out of pride now burned with jealousy and rage. She sat in her luxury penthouse, scrolling through social media posts filled with pictures of Lena and the triplets. Everywhere she looked, she saw comments like they looked like a perfect family, and that new bride was just a mistake. Tiffany slammed her phone onto the table, her eyes blazing. Perfect family? She hissed. Not if I can help it. She picked up her phone and dialed number. Yes, it's me, she said coldly. I need a favor. Dig up everything you can about that woman. Lena. I don't care how small. I want something I can use to destroy her. Meanwhile, Adrian was slowly rebuilding his relationship with his sons. Every Saturday, he took them to the park, played soccer with them, and treated them to ice cream afterward. The boys adored him. Daddy, you're funny. Luke giggled one afternoon as Adrian tried and failed to balance all three boys on his shoulders. Lena watched from a distance, smiling softly. But deep down, she was cautious. She knew Tiffany wouldn't sit quietly. And she was right. A week later, Lena received a letter from a law firm, Tiffany's lawyers. The letter claimed that Adrian's marriage to Tiffany was still valid and that Lena was attempting to lure him away for money and fame. It even accused her of lying about the triplets' paternity. Lena stared at the letter, her hands trembling. She really wants to ruin me, she whispered. That evening, Adrian came over to see the boys. But before they could run to him, Lena stopped him at the door. You need to control your wife, she said sharply. She's threatening me with lawsuits. Adrian frowned. What? What are you talking about? She handed him the letter. He read it quickly, his expression darkening with every line. This is insane. He looked up. Lena, I swear I had nothing to do with this. I know, she said quietly. But you're still married to her, Adrian. You walked away from me 10 years ago for her. What makes me think you won't walk away again? He took a step closer, his voice soft. Because I finally know what matters. I'm not that arrogant fool anymore. She looked at him, searching his face for sincerity. Before she could answer, a loud knock interrupted them. When Lena opened the door, a group of reporters stood outside, flashing cameras. Miss Lena, one shouted. Is it true you trapped Mr. Adrian into fatherhood for fame? What? She gasped, shielding her eyes from the lights. Adrian stepped in front of her, his voice firm. That's enough. Leave her alone. If you want the truth, talk to me. But the reporters only shouted louder, throwing questions. Are you divorcing Tiffany? Were you having an affair all these years? Are the children legally yours? Lena quickly pulled the boys back inside while Adrian tried to calm the chaos. When the crowd finally left, she shut the door, breathing heavily. You see? This is exactly why I didn't want to let you in my life again, she said, tears welling in her eyes. You bring chaos, Adrian. Always chaos. He wanted to hold her, to tell her it would be okay, but she stepped back. Just go, she whispered. Go and fix this mess before it destroys us all.
That night, Adrian confronted Tiffany at her penthouse. She greeted him with a glass of wine and a smirk. You came fast, she teased. Did your little family drama get too hot? He ignored the jab. Why are you doing this, Tiffany? Why drag Lena into the mud? She laughed bitterly. Because she took everything from me. My spotlight, my dignity, my husband. I was never truly yours, Adrian said coldly. You knew that. You just wanted my name, my wealth, and my father's approval. Tiffany's smirk faded. And what about you, Adrian? You wanted a perfect image too. You used me as much as I used you. He took a deep breath. Maybe I did. But I'm done pretending. I'm filing for divorce, Tiffany. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. What did you just say? I said I'm done. I want out. You can have the money, the house, everything. I just want my peace and my children. Tiffany's face twisted in fury. You'll regret this, Adrian. I'll make sure you and that woman lose everything. He turned and walked out, his heart pounding. But this time, he didn't look back. He had made his choice. The next morning, the headlines exploded again. Billionaire files for divorce amid secret triplets scandal. Some cheered for him, others mocked him. But one thing was clear, the truth was out. Lena read the news in silence, tears glistening in her eyes. Maybe he really has changed, she whispered. But in the dark corner of her mind, she knew Tiffany wasn't done yet. 3 weeks after Adrian filed for divorce, the world had calmed down, at least on the surface. The media found new gossip to chase. And for the first time in years, Lena's home was quiet. Adrian now visited the triplets every weekend, helping with homework, cooking pancakes, and even fixing their bicycles. Slowly, Lena began to see a side of him she hadn't seen in years. Humble, gentle, and finally human. One Sunday morning, as the family enjoyed breakfast together, Lena's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. She opened it, and her smile disappeared. It was a video, a secretly recorded clip showing Adrian entering her house at night, hugging her, and the caption read, "Secret affair continues. Despite divorce, poor ex-wife strikes again." Her stomach dropped. "No, no, this isn't happening," she whispered. Adrian, seeing her pale face, asked, "What's wrong?" She showed him the video. His jaw tightened. "Tiffany," he muttered. "She's behind this." Indeed, at that same moment, Tiffany was in her office, watching the chaos unfold online. She grinned wickedly. "Let's see how your new love story survives this one," she whispered, sipping her wine. Within hours, reporters were back outside Lena's home. "Lena, are you rekindling your relationship with a married man? Is this for publicity? Are you using your children to gain sympathy?" Lena held her head, overwhelmed. The boys began to cry, frightened by the noise outside. Adrian stormed outside to confront the reporters. "Enough! You people don't know the truth," he shouted. "I filed for divorce weeks ago. This woman is my ex-wife, the mother of my children, and the only person who ever truly loved me." But the damage was already spreading online. Hashtags, memes, gossip, all filled the internet again. Lena, exhausted, sank to the floor in tears. "Adrian, I can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "I can't keep living in your drama." He knelt beside her, voice trembling. "Lena, please don't give up on me. I'll fix this, I swear. Tiffany can't keep controlling our lives." The next day, Adrian called for a press conference, one that shocked everyone. He stood on stage before dozens of cameras, Lena by his side, holding the hands of their triplets. "Today," he began, "I'm telling the world the truth. 10 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I left a woman who loved me and called her barren, when in truth, I was the one who couldn't have children. God gave me a second chance, not with my wealth, not with fame, but with these 3 boys and the woman I once abandoned." Lena glanced at him, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. The room was silent, every camera flashing. "I've already filed for divorce from Tiffany," Adrian continued, "and I'm taking legal action against her for harassment, defamation, and invasion of privacy. I won't let lies destroy the truth anymore." Reporters applauded. The video went viral within minutes, not as a scandal, but as redemption. Comments flooded in. "Finally, a billionaire admitting his faults. That woman deserves her happy ending. The triplets are national treasures." Tiffany, watching from her living room, screamed and threw her phone. Her plan had backfired spectacularly. Her followers turned against her. Sponsors dropped her. Within days, she became the villain of her own story. Later that evening, Adrian and Lena sat outside under the stars, the triplets fast asleep inside. "I never imagined it would end like this," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "It's not the end. It's the beginning." She looked at him for a long time, then asked, "So what happens now, Adrian?" He chuckled gently. "Now, I learn how to be a father. And if you'll let me, maybe one day, a husband again." Lena laughed through her tears. "You always did know how to make big speeches." He reached out his hand. "No speeches this time. Just a promise. To make things right, one day at a time." She hesitated, then took his hand. "One day at a time," she echoed. As the night wind blew softly, Adrian looked at his family, the one he almost lost, and whispered, "I don't need to be a billionaire to feel rich. This right here, this is everything." The camera panned back as the family sat together under the night sky, laughter echoing from the porch. The triplets stirred in their sleep, smiling, as if they could feel the peace finally settling around them. And somewhere deep in the city, Tiffany's lights went dark, the end of her revenge and the start of a new story no money could ever buy: forgiveness.